Arrays is the most important chapter of MATLAB. Everything that MATLAB actually does behind the scene deals with arrays. So it's important to know first what they are, and that's a very simple definition. And second, when are they used, when are they actually useful. So through many examples, we are quickly gonna go through that. Now, one definition. What is an array? Well, it's one variable that can hold more than one value. We've been stuck with one variable for one value right now. We are going to be able to do millions of values into one variable name only. And if you think about powerful softwares, that's really what's hidden behind everything. Even your phone with your address book, there's not one variable name per person. It's one huge variable, but it's just one. Now there's two different kinds. If it's one-dimensional, we call it a vector. Pressures is a row vector. Densities is a column vector. If it's not one-dimensional, a two-dimensional, three-dimensional, or above, then it's referred to as a matrix. So again, MATLAB is a matrix laboratory. It loves dealing with matrices. Behind the scene, everything has to do with matrices. So matrices is two-dimensional, such as temperatures right here, or even three-dimensional, velocities right here. And you can go on forever like this. There's not a limit on the dimensions. Now, when would we use them? Here we go with examples. First, the most basic example is, of course, database. Keep data together. A quick example, keeping the top 5 score, or for a company who sells a lot of engines or parts and they want to keep all these together, it would be a perfect way to keep all the part number for one engine together. These two examples are vectors because they have one dimension only. Second idea, create data tables. So maybe the numbers are actually linked to each other, such as multiplication tables, trigonometry tables, or even financial analysis. Very, very common for financials. Those are all matrices because they're all two-dimensional. Now we can have three-dimensionals if you want, but right here we have two-dimensional arrays. Third, study properties of fluid. So we might want to keep numbers together, or we might want to calculate numbers as time evolves. Now CFD stands for computational fluid dynamics. So basically we're solving and analyzing problems that involve fluid flows. Before building an aircraft and seeing it explode because we didn't study the temperatures properly, well, maybe we could plug it in the machine and sort of build a grid around it. So a grid or a mesh like this. We would put a grid around it and study every temperature on every single spot of that aircraft. Or we could create another one for the pressure, and so on for densities, for velocities, anything that we would like to study, we could kind of put a mesh around that aircraft, and with equations such as Bernoulli's equations or Navier-Stokes, some equations you might see later on, well, we could kind of estimate pressures and see, ooh, that's a little bit too high, that's a little bit too low, we'd better change the structure. We don't like this material that we picked. So instead of wasting millions of dollars, we study on a computer. CFD, computational fluid dynamic. And that is definitely using a bunch of arrays. Now this could be 4 separate arrays, right here, one for each property of the flow, or we could push it to one single variable. So one variable to study an entire aircraft. Now 4 layers for each property, but it could be as little as one variable. Now another example is upload tremendous amount of data from files. Files can be found online with pretty much any kind of data. National Hurricane Center posts all the hurricanes, their location, latitude, longitude on a daily basis. So if you want to create a software that draws the path just based on the files that we can find online, that's something that you can do very easily with arrays. One variable can contain this whole data file. we wouldn't have to create one variable for the pressure on Monday, another variable for the pressure on Tuesday. That would be insane, keeping track of a million variables. Instead, we keep track of one that has all the numbers very well organized. So this is something very, very powerful that we're going to start using, arrays of data. There's of course a bunch of other examples, but these are the most common. Now here we conclude before we go learn the actual symbols. What is an array? It's one variable that contains a whole lot of numbers. The difference between a vector and a matrix. Make sure you kinda are sure about that in your head. Various examples showing the big pictures of arrays, so hopefully you actually have an idea of what they are. And then what's next, of course, is creating them on MATLAB, which we are going to do now.